You'd think an empty void would be easy enough to animate, but this stupid innocuous lighting effect chugs RAM and processing power like, insert your mom joke here. Wow, breaking the fourth wall already? And that was just the first line of the script. Anyway, I'm bored of this, you're bored of this, so let's go be bored of this in a different setting. Oh, look who's sitting in my seat. One of the more disappointing isekais to hit the market in recent memory, since it both has a fanbase and disappointed audiences hard with its anime adaptation. Oh, did that hurt your feelings? I'm sorry. I'll rectify that. With a video. Who am I kidding? This will probably just make it worse. So follow me as I discuss trends, history, and connect threads so convoluted, it'd make QAnon look practically shallow by comparison. And there goes my monetization. All for a joke, and not even a good one at that. But let's not get confused. This isn't a review, but a history and cultural impact retrospective to cash in on the soon-to-be-released OVAs all three fans will check out. Enough stalling. Let's get to the title drop of Arifureta Shokugyo de Sekai Saikyo, or Arifureta, from commonplace to world's strongest. And hey, subscribe while I have your attention. Maybe the bell notification too if you're feeling generous. Hey, it's been a while since we've done one of these. So starting as a web novel on Shosetsuka ni Naro, Arifureta is still running to this day on that platform, but it began in 2013. Shortly after, some big stories like ReZero, Tensura, Shield Hero, and Konosuba were thoroughly underway, with the latter wrapping up a month before this launched. Isekai was essentially in its heyday on Shosetsuka, with new series popping up like Whack-A-Mole, and whichever ones stuck around, built their audience, and grew, tended to be picked up for publication. And speaking of, June 2015 saw the release of the first volume of the light novel, with a manga adaptation following a year and a half later in December 2016. And that's where we see that the sales of this series really weren't making much of an impact until May 2017. Is that a slow start? Well, no, as light novels are released biannually, typically in June and December, and sales figures being tallied in biannual increments as well. So seeing sales tick up around that time is only really measuring sales data for the first 3 or 4 volumes, where people are just getting a feel for it and deciding if it's going to be a series they're going to recommend to the general public. God damn, that was a mouthful just to say a series takes time to gain some traction. But why stop there? Sales figures only say so much, as while a series might not be selling amazingly well, at least in its core series, manga and side stories can pull in audiences too, while further monetizing already tapped fans, which this series did a great job at, by adding a prequel novel and manga series as well as a side manga for good measure, showing the publisher had their faith in this franchise to be a real moneymaker. Anyway, December 2017, White Fox announced that it had an anime adaptation of this series primed to take center stage in April the following year. That's 2018 if you're too slow for that one. Fans were excited, so all they had to do was not fuck it up, which they did. Massive restructuring for the production with a change in director, character designer, and scriptwriter doesn't bode well for an adaptation. Subsequently, with the huge change in staff, they had to bring in a second studio to help with the animation. We'll just never be able to tell because it blends together so seamlessly. Can't believe they had to bring someone else on to help finish it. With all of the delays, the series plopped out in summer 2019 to horrible reception from fans and critics alike. Showing a botched as hell adaptation maybe hurt this one a bit more than they were expecting. Or did it? I guess we'll find that out in the last third. So, Arifureta. It's an isekai and you know what that means. Dude, otherworld, amazing power. But what's different here trope-wise? Well, some minor, admittedly better ways, while keeping some of the more egregious isekai cliches intact. Our main character ends up in this other world with his entire class from school, and each of them is given a rare class that makes them badass. Except him. He has the power to transmute things, which seems useless on the surface unless you have half a brain and could think of a million uses for it, which he clearly lacks imagination at the start because he doesn't do that, but being trapped in the darkest depths of a super hard dungeon tends to fix that problem. So he makes a gun that's part traditional revolver, part railgun, and entirely badass, sign me up, while eating monsters to boost his stats, gain their abilities, and fill out the rest of this OP quota. How did they get there though? Well, that doesn't really matter. Nor does it have to, honestly. What matters is being there kinda sucks with the whole arm ripped off and betrayal, so the dude basically just wants to get home. He and his classmates are there with the flimsy pretext of doing what they're told can get them home, so he follows orders until said betrayal, when he just focuses on surviving, having come full circle of, I just don't want to die, to literally fuck this place and everything in it. Finally, an isekai protagonist I can relate to. But hey, don't get ahead of yourself. It still fits the trope after all. A god summoned them to that world for reasons. Must have been bored, I guess. Keep it to yourselves, light novel fans. No one actually cares. And how about the world? Well, it's your typical fantasy affair with magic, swords, class system adventuring guilds, and life or death struggle against monsters, giving the inhabitants of that world meaning to their otherwise meaningless lives. And you know there's fantasy races with beastmen and demons too. Great. Exactly what you'd expect then. So it's up to our summoned modern Japanese humans to balance the scales by swinging swords and casting magic. At least the main dude being able to transmute stuff can spice things up, but even bringing modern technology is a cliche of isekai at this point, as many protagonists end up bringing modern stuff to their worlds they get transported to. But this was in 2013, that was pretty early on, and it's not like he's really sharing this shit either. Well, at least he doesn't have a harem, right? Oh, wait no, he does. With a masochistic dragon girl, a lolly vampire, a busty bunny, and about 1 billion others he's saved along the way. Fantastic. So, every isekai trope then, huh? But I guess the real question is, how does this series stand out? Well, our protagonist struggles for one. The title From Commonplace to World's Strongest isn't just for show, as the guy has a less than OP ability he had to use intelligently and work to perfect so he can actually obtain his OP status. In a market where protagonists are often called cheaters for being so damn strong with little effort, it's refreshing to see this sort of conflict for the protagonist. Dropped in a literal hellscape where he loses his arm first thing and watches it get eaten before his eyes, by some insanely strong monster defines his motivation and builds some sympathy to really sink it in for viewers what this story's about. Growth. The hero is knocked low first thing, and he has to work his way back up, in a kind of a literal sense there. Yeah, the metaphor's a bit spot on, I'd say. But why is this series popular? With the struggle it had for release, it's hard to imagine it would do well in the market. The numbers on that don't really pan out, however. As prepare to be shocked here, this series is selling well despite the crap anime. Who'd have thought? Anime productions are really there just to sell the light novels. Didn't see that coming. You'll have to excuse the Google Translate in these screen caps, because no English source is bothering to aggregate this data. But 4 million sales for 10 volumes, and the 11th selling more than the current ReZero volume released alongside it, should tell you that this series has a silent but dedicated fanbase. People who are invested enough to keep checking it out. And those numbers did have an uptick since the anime started. So while the anime failed pretty hard with its launch, the series still sells well despite that, with enough that a second season is in development. Just no word on its release yet. The fans are there, it has a market share, and with how poorly received the first season was with its abysmal release animation, there's really nowhere else to go but up from here, so at least there's that. What this series did for the industry is show that even an apparent failure in terms of execution doesn't necessarily lead to poor outcomes. Word of mouth is key, who'd have thought? PR people have known that for years. Get people talking and others will want to check it out for themselves to see the talked about shit show. Some might laugh at it, but the majority don't really care and get into the story presented. Those people become fans and, probably check out the light novels at some point to stay up to date on the franchise. And that's why even a series that looks like it did badly on every website you check out there, got shit reviews, and was mocked widely, can still turn into a market success. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I already told you that at the beginning, and I'm sure you have, but check on that for me just in case if you would. You can also join my Discord if you want, talk about anime there. I also have a Patreon too, you can check that out, pick up some extra perks. Thanks for watching.